Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Barbarian and this is Dev Diary number 82 for Victoria 3. Today we have the Voice of the People, which is the freshly announced immersion pack for Victoria 3 that focuses on agitation and on France, two things that go incredibly well together. This is my dream initial immersion pack, I will tell you this outright, because France is basically where everything sort of starts and ends in this time period. France is responsible for the crisis, of course, die Wacht am Rhein. They're responsible for the issue of everything going on with 1848. Well, you know, basically they kickstarted it. Obviously, it is an underlying current that has been going for quite some time. They are involved in virtually all colonial disputes. They are in a position where they were dealing with Mexico, where they were dealing with Italy, where they were dealing with Germany in magnificent ways, by which I mean they were involved in both of these countries' formations, although obviously in a kind of different way in Germany. Now, be that as it may, this is an interesting topic, and today, after I already published a video, if you just want the short of it, then make sure to watch that video, where I sort of explained what is generally going on. I want to take a moment and really dig deep in, so that we can take a look at everything that we know, rather than just the condensed amount of information. This means we will take a look at the dev diary, we will take a look at the dev responses in the dev diary, we'll take a look at the trailer, and we will look at the actual Steam page. So there's a lot going on there and a lot to digest. Let's just jump into this right now. This is of course a lot of content right here, and I think we gotta talk about it. Voice of the People is the immersion pack promised by and included in the Grand Edition of Victoria 3, and will be released alongside the free 1.3 update on May 22nd. So this is just about longer than a month. It's pretty soon, and with the remaining aspects of the Grand Edition at that point being the art pack and the expansion, I hope that we will see the expansion this year, so in, you know, Q3, Q4, more likely Q4 of course. That would be amazing, I would be really happy about it. The art pack may be in between. I gotta tell you, no matter how we look at this right now, Victoria 3 has a really good and speedy update cycle at this time. I am incredibly happy, especially coming from the last years of CK3, the conditions there of course being incredibly different, but this is a change of pace there, and I'm a big fan just because it really is quite permissive in what features we can talk about without thinking, well, we will see those in 4 years. I really hope, obviously, that 1.4 then brings things like foreign direct investment, greater vassal management, different German, unification and different nationalism mechanics, all that sort of stuff, but we are getting there at a pace that is really good. Be that as it may, let's take a look at the video right here. I'm going to pause this relentlessly because there is so much going on here, but this is the teaser announcement trailer, I guess, and it is a very important video because there's a lot of screenshots in here. Alright folks, I hope that it isn't too loud, but I'm going to pause quite a bit anyway, so let's just take a look at this. You can see several important personalities right here, and then, of course, the title. Honestly, this is such a good trailer, I gotta tell you as well, just from an artistic point of view. But Voice of the People, what is going on there? First of all, we can see this map and we can already immediately see that this is visually different. Obviously, there is a UI element right here, as I said in the other video as well. You can see this right here is different. This is very French motivated. And then the actual inscription is also French. Océan Atlantique Nord, and so on and so forth. We are looking at a nice map revamp, but I want to warn you, I've seen a bunch of people look at this and say, wait a minute, I think they changed the setup in, for example, Kazakhstan. This isn't 1836. I can tell you that much. Texas doesn't exist. The rebellions in Brazil don't exist. You know, obviously one of the Kazakh nations doesn't exist. This, I would guess, is like 1846 or something. Who knows? Either way, this is, of course, during a running game. This is this is the paper map skin that you get if you have the DLC. And much more interesting as well, you can already see that Algeria here looks different. They have given it a much more historically accurate setup. So Kote looks different. Also, yet again, a different setup, and I believe Damagaram, yep, was renamed and is also looking different. Oh, and you can see it actually down here as well. I didn't even notice this until just now, that the Portuguese possessions in Africa are also looking quite different now. So there have been some map changes, but obviously... Oh, wait a minute, you know what? I know that they said they wanted to change the Aboriginal tag. I don't think we can see it from here. But they wanted to change the Aboriginal tag anyway in Australia. You're not missing anything by me being down here, don't worry about it, okay? But that apparently also going to be a change. Now here we can already see a couple of new icons. I wonder what those mean. I think... Oh! So, I hope, right? Either this is IG bound or this might be pop bound. So there is currently an issue, and I talked about this with Daniel Tollman, who wrote this dev diary, and I believe, I might be mistaken here, who led the efforts to develop this content. But I talked to Daniel and I said, has something been changed in how pops join movements and revolutions? Because what I have seen is, for example, that a pop that is discriminated, let's say based on religion, will join a movement just because it's a movement. They're just kind of agitated, so they say, I will rebel against anything, even if the people they're joining are worse than the status quo. I hope you get where I'm coming from there. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. And Daniel at least said, we did change some of the decision-making there. What that ultimately amounts to, who knows? But my guess would be that maybe unrest and joining movements is more tied to the IGs and more tied to the pop groups now. That's interesting. These are obviously, this to me looks like clerks maybe. Shopkeepers maybe. This to me would look like peasants, obviously. They're having a local uprising there. Interesting stuff. I do wonder what that actually means though. Nothing more that we can really read into that, I think. Here we see it as well. That was aristocrats, I would argue, right? This looks like aristocrats here. This right here looks like aristocrats, right? At least that is what I would say. There are some blue flags here as well, which usually it would be red if it were a rebellion. Maybe they have the color of their IG now. Then right here we have women beyond spinsters. The rising feminist factions in Great Britain have suffered a schism. Emmeline Pankhurst has founded a new militant organization in its wake. Affiliations with the Independent Labour Party, 3 separate bills, 20 years of work and all the support of a dedicated community were not enough, not nearly enough, to effect even the slightest forward step on women's suffrage. To effect, new measures would be needed. A woman's right to vote would belong not only to the spinsters and the widows. By fire, fist and famine, all women will have the power to vote. Obviously, this is a radicalization of this movement right here. A few days in the country are to soothe their woes, meet with her followers early, or her charity in the workhouses does her credit, which is if you benefited this. I can see here already, and you can't see this, but I believe I just have a button for this. There you go, beautiful. They are going on, an agitator is trying to pass cultural exclusion. Then an agitator here is trying to enact state atheism, so the way movements are picked now appears to be quite different from how it is in 1.2.7. Actually very excited about this. The logic behind that is not that great in 1.2.7. There's a whole bunch of Diplo plays going on. Women Beyond Spinsters, that is this event, and then Construct a Skyscraper. So this is already fairly deep into the game, quite obviously, right? There's a lot going on there now. And I'm really interested in how they actually select how these movements start. What we have right here, I mean, listen, if you love history, if you love this time period, this is something you've been waiting for. The Third Bonaparte. Chastened by his travels abroad and his failed coup, Louis Napoleon Bonaparte has returned to French borders. Papa, Napoleon has returned. Which Napoleon would that be, Jacques? Little Corporal, the reigning king, or the Swiss man? The Swiss officer, Papa. So this is Napoleon III, who, of course, historically speaking, did become emperor of the Second French Empire, and then lost it subsequently against the Germans. Enough of his vexing coups, sent him far away, or perhaps he has learned his lesson, so you can let him back in if you would like to. I wonder how far these sort of story events go. Cool stuff either way. I want my France under Napoleon dominance. The Young Spartacus right here, that is also a very interesting event. A disastrous strike in Poland has seen leaders of the Proletariat Party executed for treason. Some members, including Rosa Luxemburg, have escaped. Far fewer of the party survived the strike than anyone hoped. The survivors resolved to meet in secret after they were made outlaws. Everyone was made clear they would be hunted by the law for their work. There was only so much of Poland they could hide in, and the Kaiser's claws numbered in the millions. There cannot be compromises, even for her, or it's excessive to punish a woman with her life ahead of her. Here we can either let her leave her alive, or we can finish her off. Then right here, back from Siberia, event in Ingria. Freshly returned after a 3-year exile in Siberia, Vladimir Lenin has met with colleagues in the trade unions to discuss his next move. Ilyich, you look cold, and a fancy ring on your finger. Exile's done you wonders. Enough that I can see how much work has to be done. Nadia and I have had a great many discussions on where the party would go next. You speak as if you'll lead to a downfall of the bourgeoisie tomorrow. It is good to see you again, old friend. The proletariat of Europe exists beyond Russia. I assume he would go to a foreign country here and could then, at some point, let's say during World War I, return to Russia, or Iskra will benefit most from his direct supervision. Here I assume you basically keep him in Russia, right? There are many dynamics to this, and we don't have all the answers yet. We have to wait for next week, but we know that we can invite exiled folks, we know that we can exile folks, and I asked, and was received an answer. I asked, hey, can I make somebody go into a different country? Can I punish them, you know, for me not liking their country, and I will send you an agitator? And the answer is, at the very least, this is something that I can confirm because it was again stated in the dev responses, you can send them back to the country of their origin. In Lenin's case, I mean, that's Russia, right? Let's see whether that indeed holds true as thought of there. Then here we have, under Atari, we have Sun Yat-sen. Informants have learned of the existence of the reformed China society. A leak has detailed plans of an uprising in Guangdong, and its members are now arrested. Sun Yat-sen, one of the leaders, has evaded capture. My brother, I wish I could write to you under better circumstances. The reforms have not gone so well. Guangdong remains in the king's hands, shouldn't that be the emperor's hands? And I cannot take a living wage. I need what you can spare from your ranches. Here we can see a movement, also by an agitator. And then right here, a movement that doesn't have anybody. So this still seems to be a pure, sort of motivated by the populace. Quite interesting to see. There seem to be a whole bunch of different aspects to movements now, which should make that quite a bit more interesting. Here we just have a long list of different agitators. Man, the more the better. The more is going on there, I think the cooler it will be. Obviously, and this has to be said right now as well, agitators can be historical personalities or ahistorical personalities, which means even if you don't have one that is a communist called Karl Heinrich Marx or, for example, Rosa Luxemburg, you might end up with somebody either way if any other country had a communist that they exiled and that you can then invite. Now, here we have the new interaction options that we have: pin and outliner, grand leadership, grand command, and exile dissident. I am so confused over grand command and grand leadership to an agitator. Oh, then again, thinking about it, oh, might this be the first way, the first option that we actually have of taking a pre-existing character that isn't our leader in a monarchy and making them a general, right? Because everybody else is always randomly generated, they pop up in that window. This might be a way of putting an agitator into that position. It feels a bit anachronistic, or rather a bit weird, right? If you just have Rosa Luxemburg. If she were a man, I assume that she can't lead because she's a woman, which means that, well, currently, no woman can lead an army in Victoria 3. But I'm thinking about this now, and I'm saying to myself, maybe this is actually the way that you just make them into a general and prepare them for a revolution. Imagine Marx as general, though. You know, we'll see how this goes. I have no idea what the actual mechanics behind that are, so quite curious in the next dev diary. Now, what we have right here is the exile dissident menu. Requirements. Germany does not have protected speech, so doing that fundamentally will make it impossible. Makes sense. At least one of these. Trade unions are not a part of the government. Trade unions is not insurrectionary, and trade unions are not marginalized. Initially, when I was reading this, trade unions not being marginalized, making it so that I can't kick her out, feels really weird to me. I wonder what the mechanics are there, but I have no judgment because, again, I don't know it at all. Rosa Luxemburg has the agitator role, right, at least one of these, so we could kick her out, even if they were marginalized, I guess. Does that mean that I can kick out politicians? Oh, I must be able to kick out just a regular old IG leader, right? Because that person wouldn't have an agitator role, and yet, if this were fulfilled, if their interest group fulfilled all of these, I could kick them out. So I reckon that I can kick out generals and maybe even politicians. Ah, interesting. If exiled, Rosa Luxemburg will leave Germany. I don't know why I pronounce it in the English way. And be recruitable by other countries as an agitator. Effects: the amounts of radicals generated depends on your freedom of speech laws and the popularity of the character. Plus 2% of trade union members become radical. Plus 2% of trade union members become radical. And she will, of course, go into exile. That is something we can do. Big fan. I hope that the invitation stuff also works seamlessly. Now this screen, we're going to see that a bit more in the Steam interface. I like this screen a lot. So remember or memorize what you can see here up top, right? The political movements and agitators, because the Steam screenshot basically just shows the list if you click on this button right here, exiled agitators. What can we see here? We can see who rules us, which traits are currently active. We can see who is in government and who is in the opposition. We can see which party they would choose, and we could see if somebody were marginalized, who would be marginalized. And I assume that these lines, these bars, are actually their actual clout, right? Then right here, we can see loyalists and radicals detailed based on which faction they support. My god, have I been waiting for like a better all-encompassing overview here. I really hope that this basically excludes unincorporated territory, because that doesn't play a role for an uprising, for example, but man, this is a nice screen. Then right here, we see a list of political movements, which is actually like 3 or 4 movements here would fit in, quite nice. And then we can see that we can have a maximum of 4 agitators. I wonder, because it specifically says potential for 4 agitators, does this have to do with our power status? What is that related to? I'm curious about this. Anyway, we can click on, there you go, exiled agitators. We take a look at people that are currently there. I wonder what the difference is between available and not available. I'm looking at this, right? This does only show exiled agitators. Oh man, I'm spitballing here. I don't know. Could it be that there might be an exiled agitator, but if they're currently doing a movement and are agitating in their exile, I can't move them over to me. So Lenin, for example, right now has no movement. Nothing is going for him, right? So I could invite him to me, and then whenever I see it, you know, as a good option, I could try to kick him out to... There's no button here. It must be a right-click interaction or something. I could kick him out and send him back to Russia. What we now know, by the way, as well, this is an interesting thing to highlight. This guy is not a historical character. This guy is. This is what the background actually means there. Oh man, I'm really looking forward to this. When they said, and this was very obvious, right? If you've played 1.2, you saw that in the outliner they added that section where it was like characters, just characters. Whoever would pin anything there? Come on, there were no interesting characters at the time. Now, I might want to pin exiles that aren't in my country, but came from my country, or exiles that I might want to invite if they become available. It was clear, even in 1.2, obviously, that they were working on this, and they were preparing the groundworks for that, for sure. This right here shows the new revolution ticking clock that we talked about in one of the previous dev diaries. We can see here just very basic stuff, really. It's radicalism, it's support low. We've seen this window, I believe, actually, in the dev diary already, so this isn't too surprising. This is, of course, in the free patch as well. Nothing here that is locked behind the actual DLC. Now here, Vive la France, I gotta be honest with you, and I said this before, France being the first immersion pact is the most important thing to me. I cannot overstate this. It's so vital. It's so important to me because everything starts and ends in France. I gave you this whole introduction, and I think it's massively true. France is incredibly important for the European dynamics, which is then incredibly important for the remaining dynamics in the world. I was worried because some people were saying, oh, it might be Canada, it might be the US, it might be Mexico, it might just be the Americas in general. And I was saying that would be cool content, but would it be the content that I would really want? I don't think so. And it turns out it's not. We are looking at a France DLC right here. You can see Algeria down in the top, in the bottom as well. Quite interesting stuff going on there. Is there anything new in this text here, by the way? So this is a historical personality. Is that bearded? I don't think that beard is right. Oh, but it's 1846, so this is a save game. This is not actually a new world map, so to speak. This is a save game. It has been 6 years since Charles X was tossed from the throne in favor of Louis Philippe. The constant threats to the crown caused Louis Philippe to rule with an ever-tightening grip. Will France embrace a more liberal future? Interesting stuff indeed. We're selecting France right here, and you can see Kingdom of France is a special name that they get if they fulfill one of their journal entries, apparently. On top of that, oh, nope, we gotta go back a little bit. There was something very important here. The conquest of Algeria and the natural borders of France. You can see stuff is going on here. And look who this is. This is Napoleon. This is Napoleon III right here agitating for autocracy. Oh my god, his support alone was 50. I wonder whether there were some pops in there, but my god, 50. That is crazy. Right over here we can see divided monarchists. This is something we will see in a second. Cement the House Bonaparte, I assume. The conquest of Algeria, and then Springtime of the People, which I can happily tell you, Springtime of the People has apparently been slightly revamped. I'm so happy about this. Springtime of the People is some of my favorite vanilla journal entry content. I didn't change much for it in the Victoria Tweaks mod, but I adjusted its firing conditions because when it fires and spreads like wildfire, it feels so good. I like that they reworked it. It's really, really important because, again, it also originates from France. But seeing this here, I love it. Then we have the Paris Commune, and you can see it right there. Look at them go. That is the Paris Commune indeed. Interesting that it's not just like Paris. I wonder how much land they took. Is this... Oh yeah, there is a revolution going on here, isn't there? I wonder what the requirements are. It could be something like the American Civil War. Let's hope that it's not too finicky. Difficult to say. Anyway, you can already see the city right here, right? You can see this beautiful city, the Arc de Triomphe. Whatever this is, I assume it's a very famous building. If you know, let me know, because I don't know. I really like the way their factories look. I think they are super cool. Really cool aesthetics. Yeah, no, this is a beautiful pack for sure. The Paris Commune. A long period of discontent over the government's demands of the National Guard in Paris has escalated into open rebellion within the city. Revolutionaries have executed several army officers and declared a rival government under the Paris Commune. The proletarians of Paris, amidst the failures and treasons of the ruling classes, have understood that the hour has struck for them to save the situation by taking into their own hands the direction of public affairs. They have understood that it is their imperious duty and their absolute right to render themselves masters of their own destinies by seizing upon the governmental power. This madness must end, or Paris armed is the revolution armed. Very, very cool. I assume this switches you over, right? There's a lot going on here. I'm a huge fan. Again, France, super important. Oh, I'm so happy for this, and I'm afraid that they didn't implement, for example, the Damascus affair, which was also, obviously, this is an Ottoman thing, but it was hugely important for France as well. This right here is the, I hope I'm pronouncing this right. I always have trouble with French names because, like Foch, they're spelled differently than they're pronounced. Dreyfus or Dreyfus? Let's say Dreyfus, convicted of treason. If you haven't heard of the scandal, there's a video by Sam Aronow on this. It's such a good video, and it's such an important piece of history. I'm going to link that video. That's such a really good piece of video. Really good video on YouTube. There you go, words. And you should definitely watch it if you are unaware. France is vital for everything. Accused of disclosing classified military information to the Sicilian ambassador in Paris, the Jewish officer Alfred Dreyfus has been judged guilty of treason by the armed forces, based off a handwriting analysis and the contents of a secret dossier. Monsieur, I present the intercepted bordereau addressed directly to the Sicilian ambassador. While the letter's handwriting is no clear match to that of M. Dreyfus, no spy would ever compose a clandestine letter using their own hand. The accused must, no doubt, have imitated or traced his own handwriting, leaving in it enough of its natural character for his correspondent to recognize it, but introducing into it, for greater safety, alterations borrowed from the hands of his brother and his sister-in-law, in one of whose writings I have discovered the very same double S as seen in the bordereau. I assume this is actually like a line-by-line thing that they actually did in a trial. It was a sham trial, of course, that basically unrolled the entire establishment in France. Super interesting stuff. Cashier him, then shipped the man off to Devil's Isle, or treason if only we still had the death penalty. This year's Algeria, very cool. You can also get events for the French Foreign Legion, with the erection of a permanent legionary barracks in Constantine, dubbed the Quartier Vienno. The French Foreign Legion has been established as a premier fighting force in Africa. You came before me as Spaniards, as Germans, as Italians, some driven by glory, others by duty, others still by a call for adventure, but all with a willingness to shed blood for a cause that was not your own. And what stands before me now? Legionaries, men with iron wills forged under the scorching African sun, men that would sooner lose their lives than their courage, even in the face of insurmountable odds. Men that embrace our motto not merely as a symbol, but as a way of life, honor and fidelity. The Legion is our country. You can also see right here the Algerian department. I believe this is probably about the integration of it. The French Foreign Legion is this event right here. We are currently enacting universal voting laws. Closed borders. They want to enact that. Interesting. And here he is again. This is just, oh, you can't even see it. This is just the guy. Napoleon is just here, just being a twat about it, okay? What a son of a gun. And we're having a revolution over censorship, which they did historically, by the way. That is what the French 1848 was about. My god, I'm so excited for this flavor. Seriously, that sounds... There's so much stuff in here that sounds really, really good. What you can see right here is different ideologies just for the French. This is so that you... Let me just go forward. You can basically see these are really similar. Like all these leanings by the different Orleanist or Bonapartist or Legitimist. There they are. They're really, really similar leanings. But what matters here is that they will let you decide which dynasty you want to support. Obviously, there's a new paper map. Yep, be that as it may. Here's the dynasty supporting stuff. Divided monarchists, we're supporting the House of Bonaparte. Support Bonapartism, support the Orleanists, or support the Legitimists. The progress bar will advance so long as a leader with our preferred candidate's ideology remains in government. When the progress bar is filled, a monarch of our preferred dynasty will probably take over. This sounds like the mechanic that ultimately will put Napoleon III into power. I wonder though, because obviously there's a bit more complex history behind that, right, when it comes to him taking over. I wonder how exactly that works. I hope that it's, and forgive me if you like Hearts of Iron 4, okay? I hope that it's not like, just like a weird sort of mini-game. I hope that this is just like an overlay of already existing mechanics, right? I don't like consulting my decision menu all the time in Hoi 4 and then spending political power to make a bar move. I think that kind of sucks. Let's hope that's not the same here, okay? No idea what that actually looks like in action, but that is my major worry. Obviously, there's a new UI theme, all that stuff has gone on. It looks beautiful. I mean, this is just, look at this. I gotta tell you, I really love these models. Somebody said that there was more variation here. So where I'm coming from is, I think these city blocks are generated in the same sort of, oh, if you have 2 or 3 or 4 adjacent squares, then unified. I'm pretty sure they're organized in the same fashion as any other city block in the game right now. These are the high-quality buildings. This seems to be a special building. Is this the... I don't know actually what these are. These just look like universities maybe, right? We got factories right here. Then we have normal buildings right here. Obviously, they look different. Obviously, they look pretty cool. Huge fan of all of this. I think these are actually like... I don't know, I just really like the style. I think I might just like the French architecture style. Anyway, that is that video. There was a lot, I think, to take in there, a lot to talk about, and I'm really, really excited, of course, to learn more about the details, but that was a lot to dissect without a doubt. Here we have another agitator window. We've already seen these in the video. This is Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, and he's an agitator, he's an intelligentsia member, he's an anarchist, he's French, he's liked, and he's 50, and then these are his traits. Is erudite a new trait? Not sure. Proudhon is one of many historical agitators and voice of the people, alongside other noteworthy such as Leon Trotsky, Sun Yat-sen, and Susan B. Anthony. Agitators are a new kind of character that rally your pops to support political movements that align with their ideology. Agitators will shake up your internal politics, acting independently of their interest group. So they're a member of the interest group, but they are not the leader. Okay? I wonder how these two interact. I have so many questions for this, all of which are like actually really excited. I think there's a lot of potential here. What I was worried about would be that we would like get a DLC or a feature that basically says, hey, every 2 years you need to take a look at this menu and just assign new characters that you do not care about. This feels like I care about these characters, but obviously, if I think they suck, I just kick them out. I just get them out of here, right? I actually like everything we've seen so far, but I have quasi-infinite questions. Here we have Giuseppe Mazzini, we have Francesc P. I. Margall, Victor Hugo, and Karl Heinrich Marx all hanging out. They've all been exiled. He, of course, has been exiled from Prussia. He has been exiled from, I want to say, France. Wow, that is actually crazy. This fellow right here, I'm not sure. And then this is the, I want to say, first president of the First Spanish Republic. Might be incorrect, but let me know. Wonder who that is as well. These are exiled agitators. We saw this venue earlier. You can invite them and they will start movements for this or for that. We have seen in the video just now that Napoleon III had started different movements, which means that yes, this is the movement they immediately favor, but I think they are willing or they are capable of supporting different movements based on whatever is going on in the country, right? That at least seems to be the impression that I have right here. Are you sick and tired of that one agrarian party leader with inexplicably high popularity stealing votes from your cherished liberals? Is there a radical agitator spreading dangerous ideas in your bastion of political reaction? Well, I've got a solution for you. Exile. Inconvenient characters can now be expelled from your nation and driven into political exile, which I think is what had happened to Napoleon in the screenshot before. Up for grabs for whatever nation wants to harbor your unpatriotic dissidents. On the other side of things, perhaps you feel like your nation needs a shake-up, and that Danish anarchist exile would just be the man for the job. You can peruse the list of available exiles and invite them to your country as an agitator. Cement the House of Bonaparte. France is a tumultuous land and has seen more governments come and go in recent generations than some other countries have seen pass over centuries. To firmly establish the monarchy, the House of Bonaparte must prove that it can provide the stability France cries out for. The Bonaparte dynasty maintains 10 years of uninterrupted rule. If completed, the Eternal House of Bonaparte, I wonder what that does, no idea, will fail if, at least one of these, France does not have monarchy enacted and a monarch from outside the House of Bonaparte sits on the throne. Obviously because then it has been interrupted. Napoleon III went on to restore the French Empire in our timeline, but what would France look like under the House of Orléans or the Legitimists? Vive la Révolution, vive la France, voice of the people's content and visual focus is themed around France, one of the greatest powers of the era and one of the most, in my humble opinion, in need of a healthy dose of content. Again, and I know I'm repeating myself, but it's so important to me. France is the one nation that we can trace all of these things back. In terms of like, they were involved or they kickstarted it with the entire legacy of the French Revolution, the entire legacy then of the banquet movement, where they basically forced the king to give them their rights back, right? Their Charter of Rights that was discontinued, or rather was disregarded by the king's government until 1848-49. Really interesting stuff in there. France is so vital for kicking all that stuff off, for impacting all that stuff, and then of course playing a huge role for Italy, for Germany, obviously also for, Savoy in general. I have asked, there's so much to talk about here, Jesus Christ. I have asked Daniel Tollman as well. I asked, hey, do the French in Savoy have content? And the answer is yes. So maybe we can do what they did historically now. I wonder how exactly it works, but interesting stuff. They were involved in Mexico. They were involved in so many locations. Really, really big fan that they actually get this first DLC. It's really important in my opinion. We'll be going into details about what we have planned for France, but right now I can tell you that we'll be tackling such weighty topics as the Paris Commune, the Dreyfus Affair, and the dynastic struggle for the French throne, including of course the return of the Bonapartes. We will also be covering the nation's quest for territorial expansion, both within Europe and beyond. With ample new journal entries and events, playing as France will offer a much more immersive experience. Here we have the House of Orleans, the Conquest of Algeria, and the Divided Monarchists. There you go. This is at the start of the game, 1836. You can see the new interface. Sadly, I can't click this. This is a low-resolution image. Yes, something here changed in Australia. But we can't see the full thing. I couldn't tell you. Right here, this is the infamous Baguette Centaur, a legendary figure in the Pacific Ocean. Right here, we have something that is excellent to look at. So they remixed, and I showed this in the other video as well, they remixed the state regions in France. You can see Paris, for example, got smaller. This is now split. This is a separate state region. You can see that Lorraine is separate rather than Franche-Comté being like all unified in here. Big changes. My personal favorite, though, is this. You see this? I can't zoom in. Again, low quality picture. Can't do anything about it. Rouen is a new state region. This is where the river runs. This is where the river is. You can now create the natural borders of France according to France. Right here. Boom. You can follow the River Rhine. I hope that the content around that is really cool. We'll see. We'll see, right? Who knows? But yeah, they changed a whole lot of stuff. So far, everything we've talked about in the previous 1.3 dev diaries is part of the free update. The revolution clock, the changes to law enactment, and the new laws, for instance. These are reworks of existing systems and additions to them, exactly the kind of changes that Paradox veterans might expect in a free update. Immersion packs are envisioned as content-driven and art-heavy, with mechanical features that support this content and make the world come to life. As the title implies, immersion packs are about immersion. You can expect them to contain plenty of narrative content like events and journal entries, major visual updates, and light but impactful new mechanical features and systems reworks. Immersion packs will be themed around one country or region of the world, and this is where the bulk of narrative content and art will be focused and take inspiration from. These new mechanical features and systems reworks will be mostly contained in the free update that will be released alongside the immersion pack. Everyone gets the feature, but immersion pack owners will also get the bells and whistles. This is a philosophy that CK3 has employed. I'm not so sure about Stellaris. I don't think so. I don't think Stellaris counts here. Maybe Hoi 4 as well. But CK3, I think, is the flagship when it comes to this idea that almost everything that we can do mechanically speaking should be in the free game. Because only then can future DLC also iterate on these things. And you don't need to own DLC 1 and DLC 2 for things to happen. And modders can very, very freely work with this. Modders can create their own agitators, modders can create their own political movements, etc, etc, etc. Now, I do want to highlight one thing, and this is something that I keep seeing this, and I understand where it's coming from. But at this point, I would argue that I really have come to a position where I disagree with it. I can see how people would say, oh, this mechanic is free, well, then what's the point of the DLC? I'll be honest with you. If at this point, in the year 2023 of your lord, after you've been through years and years and years and years of Paradox DLC, where you got no features, Holy Fury, for example, again, basically 0 features in the free patch, although it was one of the better free patches. If you now think that it's worse that there's free stuff accompanying it so that it's looser and people can work more freely with it, I don't know what to tell you. I'm very, very positive about this approach. I'm very, very happy to see that the Victoria 3 team is doing this also. Whether the features, that are in the DLC should be in the DLC or vice versa. For example, like, I do find it kind of weird that you can't exile characters without the DLC, but we will see the details, of course, going forward. I don't know how big the impact is. I don't know what the gameplay loop looks like. I don't know what the balancing looks like with or without the DLC. Huge questions that we can only see in due time. Right now, the more stuff is in the free patch, the better that is. I'll just be entirely honest with you. That is my unironic take. In the case of the Voice of the People, Agitators will be a free feature, while certain interactions, such as exiling characters, will be included in the immersion pack. We shall see what the big topic about that is. Time for a team update. Since around the game's release, the Victoria 3 team has transitioned from being a project aimed at delivering a single product, Victoria 3 1.0, to a team that can work on multiple updates simultaneously. we have divided ourselves into 3 sub-teams with different focuses, sizes, and fields of expertise. For instance, the Machinist team was responsible for bringing you the update 1.2 and is defined by a focus on systems design and code-heavy tasks. Voice of the People in 1.3 is primarily the work of the Academics and Artisans teams, which focus on narrative design / scripted content and art respectively. The teams tie into our major post-release goals that we've talked about before. 1.3 and Voice of the People are focused on internal politics and historical immersion, which very deliberately lines up perfectly with the expertise of the Academics and Artisans teams. While the Academics and Artisans work on 1.3, the Machinist team is cooking up the next systems-focused update, which will include some long-awaited free updates related to our other post-release pillars. We're far from ready to start talking about this now, but I can assure you it is exciting stuff. We shall see. I like that they split this team. I really, coming from CK3, I am so happy about the initial update pacing here for this game. The initial worry, and I called it in my review, right? I called this game an unpolished gem, and I think it was spot on, still. Not to pat my own back too much, but I think that was spot on. The initial worry, when that is the initial assessment, doubtlessly is how long until it's polished, right? With this speed, I'm very confident. I'm very happy where we're going with this speed. Curious, obviously, where you stand on this, but my personal worst nightmare, I know that like Reddit and the forums, they like to like talk about this all day. I don't understand where people are getting the time for this from. My personal worry was never like, oh, this is gonna go like Imperato. My personal worry was just, when can they deliver what? We are at a pace that is looking good. Now, this is the end of this dev diary, but we obviously have all of these dev responses right here. Let's take a look at them. Will we be able to send agitators into other nations? Lenin as an example. You will be able to send agitators back to their home countries, but more on that next week. Very interesting. I am very excited for next week. More depth to and room for player agency in internal politics is cool. A part of me is worried though, that features and early DLC content will end up relatively neglected later on in the Victoria 3's life cycle. Good news, Agitators is a free feature, right? We've already seen this. Then right here, that is just, yep, it's gonna be very moddable. Who cares? It would be really cool if some agitators would fight for independence of their homelands if their culture / religion is oppressed. Not something that is coming in 1.3, but if we do nationalism / secessions rework, we would absolutely incorporate agitators into that. I think they would actually fit in really, really well. The Garibaldi, okay, the Hungarian secessionists, my god, the entire declaration of wanting autonomy in that location, everything going on in Poland. So many examples of this. Really, really looking forward to that for sure. Will the Grand Edition owners get this? Yep, they will. It is indeed included. Then some meme questions right here. Will we be seeing the revolutions of 1848 happening with this immersion pack? I would love to see a major getting a revolution in or around 48 and causing a tidal wave of turmoil around Europe. If France is the originator, all the better. We have done a lot of tweaking to the 1848 content and involved agitators more centrally. God bless. I love the 1848 content, it just doesn't happen enough. This is exactly the first DLC that I wanted. I'm not gonna lie to you, this is exactly it. It's like they read my mind. Are all agitators historical people or will we get generated ones? They are both historical and randomly generated agitators. The historical agitators will spawn under historically appropriate conditions and they're not guaranteed every game. Alright, and that was that when it comes to the developer comments under the dev diary. I think there's a lot to take away from there as well, but now let's take a look at the screenshots right here on the Steam page. This is the screen that we had earlier, where I said, keep in mind what we had here, the political movements and such. This is just the sort of invitation map, right? Or invitation screen. What do we have here? We have the government. They're not that big in comparison. It's the Communist Party and the Liberals. The Liberals with the trade unions, very interesting. And then we got all these folks hanging around in the opposition. We can see that we have a lot of loyalists in the industrialists and quite the number of radicals in the trade unions. This is something, and with the rural folk as well, this is something that, in my opinion, people, when they look at it, and if they're not too experienced in Victoria 3, they don't fundamentally understand this. In 1.2.7, it is normal, until you hit like 1880 or so, to have a boatload of radicals. That's kind of the point, because poor people are poor and they're not getting good wages, right? It makes a lot of sense. But that is never really sort of explained to the player outside of going through a million sort of tooltips. Right here, we can see it very clearly. Yeah, sure, we might have a lot of radicals, but come on. Peasants? Trade unionists? Ridiculous. So this is a very, very good screen in my opinion. You can also see the tendency, of course. This is in 1900 right here. Interesting design right here again. Yep, nothing else too surprising, I would say. Standard of living is a bit low for Britain in 1900. I wonder how they changed that, though. We see Rosa Luxemburg, Emmeline Pankhurst. She has been ousted, I guess, by the British. Then we got Bina Niamodi and Frances Hannibal. These two are indeed not historical personalities. Quite interesting. Then right here we have just, you know, a screen right here. You can see this is 1869, so just a historical situation. This guy's not a historical character, so let's not worry about it too much. And he wants to enact colonial exploitation. What a son of a gun. 1869, you can see there are good news and there are bad news. The good news is they did the Oregon Treaty. Does Vanilla do that right now? I don't think they do that all too often, but look at that. They did it. The bad news is, well, yeah, all of this, right? Central America, puppeted here by the British. The more interactivity and the more action there by the AI, I think the better. Then right here we got Louis Napoleon Bonaparte. This is in 1848. He is merely an agitator right now. He is not the Emperor of France. Let's take a look at this. Oh, no. What do they support here? Hates council republics, obviously. Hates anarchy and technocracy. Hates... Well, oh, what? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, this screenshot must be from before they implemented the, whatever it's called. Industry ban. Because, like, he would probably hate that, right? Industry ban? I don't think he would welcome that. It's not written here, though. It's missing. Who knows? Maybe they removed it. I doubt it. We have a movement right here to get Presidential Republic. And that movement... Okay, so there's now two screens, actually. This guy is supporting it. He's an agitator. And then these interest groups are supporting it. Here, the interest group is supporting it, but no agitator. Interesting. I'm so curious about so many of these numbers. The dev here is currently playing Egalitarian Society. What a dork. The Paris Commune, we already took a look at that. Here we have Enact Autocracy. Not sure who this is, but it's 1870, so it's a whole bit later. Could that be him? Is that Bonaparte? I can't see it from here. It might be. Frankly, it might be. He seems he seems beloved. So, like, if he joins the movement, I assume it's very impactful. And there you go. But yeah, the Paris Commune has risen. Oh, and it shows you that it's part of the content. Interesting. Interesting stuff. It actually makes that very, very clear. Then right here, we've seen this Exile Dissident screen already. Nothing too much to talk about here. I think construct the Suez Canal. We see pretty decent values. Come on. These numbers could be better, okay? I really wonder how these interactions work. And then we have Paris right here. Oh, what is this? Look at that. That's a very... That feels more modern, right? Probably not. Anyway, these are the screenshots here on the Steam page. I don't think there's too much new stuff in here. You can see what is in it. Special character interactions, new visuals, pre-order rewards. This is the only negative thing, and I do want to bring it up. I think it's kind of weird to have pre-order rewards that are real people. Georges Clemenceau, wasn't he, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't he president or at least prime minister of France? Listen, okay? I think this is looking like a really good DLC. I think the free content being as impactful as it is, where you get this new mechanic of agitators, and that being free is great stuff. I think this DLC, in my view, from what we know right now, and obviously we need to go deeper into this, we need to dig really into the numbers there, but you know me, I mod the game like crazy. I've seen all the numbers, right? So I'm gonna look at that stuff and I'm gonna judge it fairly, but harshly. I like everything that I'm seeing here so far. I think this is the first time that they intensified how they use characters and that I didn't go, God, that looks terrible. Pre-order rewards like this, I just don't get it though. I don't think this, like, I would rather that it's just these three folks behind the pre-order bonus than a mechanic or even events. I would rather lose these than events, right? But I'm like, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. I don't know. Who knows, okay? Let me know what you think. I just feel like it's not necessary. This DLC and the free content has so much to offer. Do I need to hide Alexis de Tocqueville behind the pre-order bonus? I don't know. Will he become available at any given point later? I have no idea. Obviously, some characters like Marx are already in the game. Then some other characters like Lenin, Sun Yat-sen, and Pankhurst will be joining with the DLC. And then these folks, only if you... I don't know. I'm just saying, I think this is really good stuff. Whether you get historical characters or not. You get these agitators now. They play a big role. You get stuff going on about France. You get the natural border with the Rhine that you can now create via the state regions, but you also have a journal entry that Daniel Tollman worked on, actually. I remember this. He talked about this. There's so much stuff going on here that is really, really good. I think I'm absolutely hyped. 22nd of May, I'm really looking forward to it. I will tell you right now, though, just to repeat this. Come on, you don't need this, okay? Anyway, I'm really excited. I was worried about a New World DLC, which would have been cool, but France is the pivotal moment right here in this game. Big fan. That's it for today. As you can see, I'm quite excited. I was very excited when I learned about this DLC when I got access to the dev diary. And I'll leave you right here. Let me know what you think. Listen, whether you disagree or agree, I know that in particular the topic, of course, of the how much does it cost, how much is in the DLC, how much is in the free patch, I know that agitates people. Just remain calm. Leave your comment. I think every opinion is incredibly important to understand the general idea, right? You just heard mine. I would be very eager to hear yours. For the moment, though, I will see you later. Alligator.